Kadi, please go ahead.
Yes, okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending in your time zone. Thank you to those who have already joined us. My name is Khadija Tucham from Senegal. I am a statistician and the head of the Division of Vital Statistics and Archiving in the National Agency of Civil Registration. I am the first rapporteur for the Takwimu YAS program. Today, I will be moderating the webinar and will be using both French and English. Please note that the interpretation services are available. To select the language of your choice, go to the button of the Zoom page, identify the global icon, click to select either English or French language. We will be sharing our webinar shortly. If it is agreeable, take 5 minutes. Let's now start our webinar. You are leaving an existing area where data can no longer be ignored but has to search after, just like the oil that sets and kept in motion. The theme of our first webinar this year is Empowering Young African Statisticians, Preparing Fundable and Implementable Project Proposal for Impactful Statistical Development in Africa. During this webinar, we will also honor the legacy of the founder of the Takwimu Young's African Statistician Program, the ongoing director of the African Center for Statistics, Monsieur Oliver Chingana. I encourage you to state which use till the end. Before we start, please take note of the following housekeeping logistic. First, if you have any technical issue during this discussion today, please share them via the chat and a member of our team will try to help you. We ask for your patience to allow for some delay due to internet connectivity. We invite you to participate in the discussion by sharing any question or comment with the panelists through the chat windows. Type your message in the chat box. You can also ask for the floor to share your experience and ask a question. Finally, the webinar is being recorded and the recording will be shared on the event page along with the presentation. Without delay, I am pleased to invite Mr. Sasir Napo, chairperson of the Takwimu Young's African Statistician Program, to officially open this session with this remark. Over to you, Sasir. La parole est à toi, Sasir. Merci.
Thank you, Mrs. Moderator, for giving me the floor. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your location, distinguished guests, colleagues, and the aspiring community of young statisticians joining us today. It's truly an honor to address you as we discuss how you can equip yourselves to craft fundable and impactful project proposals that drive meaningful change in statistical development. This event is about more than just learning. It's about empowering you, the young statisticians of Africa, to become the main agents for transformation in our ever-evolving data-driven world. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, in today's world, data is not just a number on a page. It's the foundation of decision-making, innovation, and progress. And as young statisticians and data scientists, you hold the capacity and capability to unlock the potential for positive change in your respective field of expertise and interest, not only for yourself, but for your community and our very own continent. Your ideas, if rooted in evidence and creativity, are vital for tackling Africa's unique challenges, including our continent's Agenda 2063 and the UN 2030 Agenda. But even the brightest ideas need the right tools to become actionable, impactful solutions. That's why we are here today, to bridge the gap between ambition and action, between vision and impact. When we talk about preparing fundable and implementable project proposals, we are talking about crafting blueprints for real-world impact. A proposal is more than a document. It's your story. A story that explains why the challenge you are addressing matters, why your solution is feasible, and how it will make a lasting difference. In our Takwimu program, as we enter the last year of implementation of our strategy plan 2023-2025, we are planning to build on this session and follow up through 3 key activities. Firstly, creating a dedicated subcommittee. The subcommittee Research and Innovation will be responsible for gathering innovative ideas and proposals from members and assist them in preparing and delivering the best quality while identifying funding opportunities. The second activity is through our mentorship program. As young statisticians, our strength lies in how we capitalize the knowledge gotten from our elders and peers. We must use this to our advantage. That's why we are offering this mentorship program whereby project design and management will form a specific cluster. And lastly, organize follow-up webinars. The Takwimu program will organize at least one technical session in addition to this inaugural one that will delve deeper into project design issues. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, above all, we are celebrating today a legacy of leadership. As we enhance our learning for knowledge and growth, we also celebrate an outstanding leader, the founder of the Takwimu Young African Statisticians program, for his tireless dedication to building statistical capacity across Africa and beyond. His legacy reminds us of the importance of investing in others and creating opportunities as inspiration and service to the next generations. I name here Mr. Oliver Shingenya, the director of the African Center for Statistics. His challenge to the young statisticians on the continent has and continues to inspire us all, not only for higher, but to go beyond. On behalf of the entire Takwimu community and myself, I would like to thank you for all your support, Director Oliver. We pledge to keep your work alive. To conclude my remarks, as we navigate through today's program, let us purpose to think differently, innovate and collaborate openly, that's very important, and contribute significantly to the Africa we want. Thank you for joining us today, for bringing your energy and for committing to this journey towards a transformed African statistical data and information system. I thank you for your kind attention. Back to you, Mrs. Moderator.
Thank you very much, Monsieur Napo, for those inspiring opening remarks. You have highlighted some key point. You have highlighted some key point, particularly the empowering young African statistician in existing new initiative, begin launching and program capacity building for young statisticians. As we throw more, please feel free to stay engaged in the chat. Your question and comment are very much welcome to the session. Ladies and gentlemen, as mentioned earlier, today's webinar will focus on how to empower young statisticians to prepare fundable and implementable project proposal for impactful statistical development in Africa. We are honored to have a keynote presentation from an accomplished expert in statistics, field which was vast experience in everything statistic and statistical development, including preparing bankable project proposal. Professor Samuel Kobina Anim is the government statistician at the Ghana Statistical Service. Professor Amin has contributed to several interventions, including institutionalization of microfinance program, establishment of data repository center, upgrading the statute of the Department of Economic to the school, and the development of the host of policies that promote scholar and research administration. This passion for this scholarly work stands to data quality for development. Professor Kobina passionately supports national and global development agenda by providing professional services to the National Development Planning Commission, the National Statistics System in Ghana, and several international bodies. He is a professor of economics with specific concentration on microeconomy, University of Cape Coast, Ghana. He holds a Bachelor of Arts, Master of Philosophy, and Doctorate of Philosophy degree in Economics at the University of Cape Coast, Ghana, University of Ghana, and University of Manchester, United Kingdom, respectively. He has approximately 20 years of reaching experience in university, both in Ghana and above, and has more than 14 peer-reviewed journal articles, both chapter and technical report to this credit. These publications are available in academic outlets such as World Development Journal of Development Study, Journal of International Development, and the Oxford University Press. Professor Kabina, the floor is yours, and you have 25 minutes. Thank you. Professor Kabina?
Hi, thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
I can see you, but not the screen.
Okay.
Is it clear now?
Yeah, but you need to put it in presentation mode. Okay, that's better now.
Thank you very much. And Madam Moderator, thank you for the introduction. And I'm very pleased to be part of this conversation for two reasons. One is a subject matter that, per my background, I'm deeply passionate about, that has to do with capacity strengthening. And secondly, I'm extremely delighted to be part of the celebration of a legacy, as the chairperson indicated. Chairperson, thank you very much for the insightful background notes to this engagement this afternoon, where you highlighted fundable implementation of project proposals by talking about whether it's feasible, whether it's innovative, and the needed collaboration that we need around it. And Oliver, it's so inspiring to hear that you had this vision, you've nurtured it throughout these years, and today we are celebrating this legacy and charting a path to ensure its sustainability. What I want to start my talk about is for us to think through, especially with our young statisticians around this virtual engagement, on why one would want to embark on a project. If you look at the theme of what I need to talk about today, it touches on some key words, one of which the chairperson talked about, which has to do with empowerment. So this is a knowledge sharing platform to achieve an empowering goal for our young statisticians in a manner that they would help us transform issues that we've been grappling with as a continent for some time now. So the first issue that I want to talk about has to do with what will make statistical development in Africa impactful. And this would help us put in a context why we embark on a project. And this is exactly what the chairperson highlighted. We need to see a change happening, and the change will only happen if we begin to do things differently. One of which we are beginning to think about how young statisticians on the continent will look at things differently to enable us cause the needed change that we want. The second thing that I think it is important is, and I've seen this as an academic over the years, people always asking, which project should I embark on? And I keep saying that it shouldn't be a concern if you really know why you are doing what you are doing. So I want to point all of us to areas that would make it fairly and seamlessly achievable if you want to identify a project that you want to do. And the only thing in my view you need to do is which documents are available, what is guiding the statistics profession at all three levels, the global level, the regional level, and within your country. Then I'm going to hone in on the culture and environment for writing project proposal, which here I talk about the soft side of things, which I think most of the time is missing, because when we're talking about writing project proposal, we only focus most of the time on the hard type, that is the technical considerations, but a great deal of the project writing process is really on the soft side, and it's more about the sense of responsibility and how you feel engaged within the space of the statistics community that we find ourselves. Then I'll talk about some technical issues by starting with the project proposal cycle, touch on some technical considerations. I wouldn't leave out again some other sides to the conversation, which really influences your ability to get funding for the exercise that you are doing. And before you get funding, you need to think about issues around duration, issues around budgeting, and how that aligns to funders' search for the collective activity which will lead to a change in our community. I'm going to conclude today's keynote address with a summary touching on 5 keywords and share with you in recent times some project proposal that I've been reflecting on and nurturing as a motivation for all of us. So 6 issues from the perspective of what would make statistical development in Africa impactful. And I keep saying this, and it's the premise of every conversation that I have on statistics development, data statistics, policy design, development, value chain. We all need to accept that Africa is characterized by cyclical development fluctuations. That is why anytime you plot the GDP graph of most African countries, you see it fluctuating. And what that means is that we are yet to achieve sustainable development. So until we get sustainable development, until we halt the cyclical fluctuations in our development, transformation of livelihoods will be a challenge. And this is where I talk about the soft side of things. As young statisticians, this should be the starting point. We need to feel part of a group of technocrats who are mandated to halt this cyclical fluctuation. Let us not see our work ending at the point of producing data, but the ultimate goal of halting the cyclical fluctuations and ensuring the livelihood transformation. The other thing that I talked about is bridging the gap. And here I talk about bridging the gap, not just an attempt in doing that, but hastening the process of technological catch-up. This is so important for this conversation, especially with the rapid technological innovations that are happening in the fifth industrial world that we find ourselves, especially in the world of AI, that some of us keep hammering the point that if we are not conscious about it, if we are not deliberate about it, and we come in as passive people in this process of the rapid technological evolution, then the statistical development in Africa will not help bridge that regional inequality, which will be deepened by the rapid technological innovations that are happening. The third and fourth point, which I think would make us feel the impact of statistical development in Africa, is what I indicated earlier on. And here I'm very careful with my choice of words. We need to penetrate the policy space, and not just penetrating it, receiving recognition within the policy space. What that means is that it is not just a matter of producing the statistics, but policymakers recognizing that without the work of statistics, our work or our interventions will not receive the needed impact that is expected. So it's one thing penetrating, and it's another thing receiving recognition within that policy space. Next, this year, June, July, there will be the 4th Financing for Development Conference in Spain in the month of June and July. And one of the things that globally we're trying to change is the narrative around the engagement with statistics. Statistics mainly has been used as a monitoring tool, and that is what we need to change. So once you're thinking about a project proposal, don't think about a project proposal only from the perspective of using statistics to monitor global policies, regional policies, and national policies. More importantly, is the role of statistics in influencing and evaluating policies, which is a narrative that is missing in the statistics community of practice. And we really want to take hold of the potential role of young statisticians to enter into the industry by producing statistics in a manner that it would influence policies and it will lead to the evaluation of policies rather than using statistics to monitor interventions only. Then the fifth area is the promotion of independence, governance, and stewardship. These are areas that, again, our focus on the production of statistics makes us think that they are not part of our core mandate. And as young statisticians, if we really want to appreciate the data statistics value chain, you need to move away from the production side, not move away, but complement the production side with what makes statistical offices independent, the governance structures and issues around stewardship, which I'm happy to say that around the global community, these are issues that are receiving great attention, and hopefully we'll get a sense of the conceptual issues which will enable us to do projects around this area. I keep saying to my community in Ghana that my work is not for policymakers only. My work really is for the public. So in as much as we are empowering young statisticians on this platform in project proposal writing to receive funding, our work really is to empower the public for advocacy and engagement issues around how policies can be evidence-based. So our scope of users really are not only government and policymakers, we really need to touch on the greater public. And in Africa, where a number of us see this youth bulge, it's important we take advantage of it and see how products can be targeted to this youth that are emerging in a number of countries to ensure that we get them to be advocates and engage more with policies. In my next few slides, I'm going to go through issues that I'm pretty much aware that a number of us have seen it, so I'm going to be pretty fast on it. So this is a diagram that came along ahead of the SDGs around 2014 on the role of data and how we see its performance in the implementation phase of the Sustainable Development Goals. So a number of countries followed the Global Data Revolution agenda and picked on 6 key issues, that is issues around modernization, transformative actions that NSOs and the National Statistical System should pursue. The third one has to do with demands of complex development agenda. And this is where we highlight contemporary issues that are coming up. Really, the challenges that are faced globally, regionally now, it is not only a single data set that would help us do that. So we're getting into the realm where we appreciate complex development challenges, and the only way we can go about that is to have an integrated data platforms that would help us connect and do multidisciplinary research to enable us address these complex challenges. I did indicate that the focus is not only on the public, on the government sector, we need to now focus on the private sector needs. And between the 2014 that this was done and now, here we don't only talk about private sector needs, but really the resources, especially from the data side that we're getting from the private sector, and how we can complement that with the data that we are getting from the government side and also what national statistical offices are producing. Really, if you look at the expansion in the scope of owners of data, it's about time we get a good sense of how to handle issues around data from multiple perspectives, i.e. governance, i.e. stewardship, and so on. Building capacity and literacy is exactly what we are doing. And the last point is how we can empower the public, which I said earlier on, by liberating data for transparency and accountability. Just last November, this community, that's the data and statistics community, gave the approval to the United Nations Statistics Division to table the Medellin framework for global effort around data to ensure that it achieves its ultimate goal. And it had 4 broad areas which takes its roots from the Cape Town Global Action Plan from 2017. So these four broad areas has 12 commitments that we're all going to follow. And again, as I indicated, this should make it very easy for all of us in identifying projects. So issues around innovation, issues around inclusion, issues around use and reuse of data, through the other areas to lastly, issues around coordination, sustainable investment, and resilience. So these are global materials that are available, which is going to make it fairly easy in the identification of project proposals as young statisticians. I present this, and again, as I indicated, this is something that most of us have seen, especially those of us who work with the generic statistics business process mapping model, which covers 8 broad areas. And when I look at these 8 broad areas, which is the overarching process of the work of statistician, I put it into 4 domains. the domain that you conceptualize what you want to do, the domain that you plan what you want to do, the domain that you manufacture what you ought to do, and the domain that you assess what you are doing. This is exactly the summary of our generic statistics business process mapping that we all as a statistics community, we are working with. So if you think through these processes from the four broad points that I've analyzed, again, it makes it fairly easy for you as a young statistician in the identification of a project proposal. Then coming to our own continent, which is Africa, and again, credit goes to the Center for African Statistics led by my own good friend, Mr. Oliver Chingaya, that we are celebrating today. We have this roadmap for the transformation and modernization of official statistics, which highlights areas that really we can easily identify projects as young statisticians to deepen the work that we are doing to achieve its expected impact. So it touches on issues around leadership and advocacy, balance autonomy, which I talked about from the perspective of independence, national statistical system, which I talked about from a coordination point of view, and clearly other areas that makes it fairly easy, as I indicated, in identifying a project proposal. Now I get into the soft side of things, that is the culture and environment for writing project proposals. I say this is the soft side because it is difficult to put somebody in the classroom to tell the person that you need to have interest for writing project proposal. But once you think about what you are made of as a statistician and the fact that you should have a personal progression and the argument that you are not just a civil servant, you are not just a public servant, but your ultimate goal as a young statistician is to become a technocrat. And if you define technocrat from the perspective of somebody who belongs to a group of people with specialized skills and command some government respect and government recognition, then as you progress along your career path, you think about how do I get to the point of a technocrat, having started off as a civil servant, as a public servant, or as a young academic in a university or any think tank organization. If you have that career path in mind, that progressing through to become a technocrat, then the only way you can contribute and enhance the achievement of this goal is to build your interest in what you ought to do by identifying gray areas that need research and also building yourself with the needed capacities. And the way you can do that is from day one. And Chairperson, thank you for highlighting that, identifying the needed networks that you need to belong to through collaborations and partnerships. The second soft thing that you also need to think about is what are the characterizations of our profession and the fact that statistics is a public good. And once statistics is a public good, your role to make it survive, to make it grow, is to ensure that we always have funding that supports the work that we do. And that is why you need to begin to think about who would fund, what is the ideology of the funder, and how you work with it. You can only do that if you don't only look at documentations, but in addition to documentations, understand the game around how you attract funding within this community. Obviously, your ability to achieve this personal inherent attributes will be dependent on the institutional support that you have. And I'm happy some of my colleagues are around this call to provide the necessary institutional support. So quickly, I show you the organizational structure of Ghana Statistical Service and highlight 3 areas that we in our minds is providing the platform for young statisticians to think beyond data production and identifying projects that would help grow the statistics industry. One is having a full-fledged directorate on research and data science, having a full-fledged directorate on methods and standards, which I know a number of NSOs do have, and also getting closer to the policy space as I indicated. And the only way you can get closer to the policy space is if internally you have policy discussions, therefore the establishment of a public finance policy section within our economy directorate. So this is the way institutions can create an environment that points to that transition which I talked about, moving away from a civil servant or a public servant through to becoming a technocrat where your statistics would make an impact, absence of which policy development will not happen. What is a project proposal cycle? This is really cyclical, as the name indicates, and the starting point is conceptualization. What I want to highlight here, I've talked about the conceptualization earlier on. What I want to highlight here is when funding comes in. And if you see to the right of conceptualization, you don't conceptualize and quickly go to development of proposal, thinking about duration, budget, knowledge exchange, and so on. The issue of funding should come in immediately you've conceived the idea and you started thinking about it. Because if you wait till the last minute, the danger is that your thoughts, when it's developed, would misalign with the thoughts, the ideologies, the philosophies of funders. So anytime you think of an idea as a young statistician, within your network of collaborators, you need to begin to sell the idea. Never put up a fear that if you sell your idea, somebody's going to take it and run with it. Once you have the idea, nobody's going to take it away and run with it, because you see the end of the tunnel. So you need to nurture it by beginning to talk to funders, making sure that your ideas align with their philosophies, their ideologies, and they would help you in the process on how to shape that proposal to meet their demands. Some technical considerations, which again, I'm going to quickly run through them, 12 of them for our reflection. A number of us here have gone through formal academic work, so we've written some form of a research product before, and you know the starting point is the formulation of a problem. But I emphasize the fact that it's not just the problem that you have identified. It is important that that problem resonates with peers in the community of statistics practice. Because if you identify a problem that convincingly you're not able to articulate it, for it to resonate with your peers, the value of that problem would not be achieved at the end of the day. So the onus rests with you to ensure that once the problem has been identified, its formulation should have an objective of it resonating with your peers. Because at the end of the day, it's your peers who are going to take forward the findings that is going to come out of it. The second point that I put down is articulating a framework from a conceptual, analytical, and statistical perspective. What I think is really missing in the space of statistics practice is what we call the statistical frameworks. We all have an appreciation of the conceptual frameworks and the analytical frameworks, but what we really need to work on and put in our statistical project is what we call the statistical frameworks, which simply talks about how we present or engage with statistics from a policy point of view or a theory of change point of view, where you identify the statistical inputs, that is the policy inputs that are expected to yield an output and an outcome. If we continue to present statistics in a manner that demonstrates a univariate prevalence or a bivariate prevalence, it doesn't resonate with the needs of policymakers. So we really need to think about statistical frameworks that aligns policy inputs to policy output. By so doing, you'll be getting closer to what the conceptual framework with, and your analytical framework will be in line with the conceptual framework and the expected output, which is the statistical framework. The third point that I raise is the choice of approach. And here I borrow my knowledge in economics, and I say that the approach should meet three demands. It has to be absolutely advantageous, it has to be comparatively advantageous, and it has to be competitively advantageous. And what I mean by that is, it is not just on the merit of the choice of the approach that you are using, but how that approach compares with others and makes it the best among the equals. And three, whether it's competitive from a cost point of view, from a less human burdensome point of view, and that is going to make it competitive. So your choice of approach should at least meet these three dimensions: absolutely advantageous, comparatively advantageous, and competitively advantageous. We all have been talking about data production. This is our mandate. It falls within our work. The fifth point that I want to align your thoughts to is what we started in Ghana Statistical Service 2 years back. And this is what we call the CAN agenda, C-A-N, which has to do with your project proposal technically should demonstrate that you know what is existing and what you are prepared to change. In this day, you cannot write a project proposal and leave out the issue of automation, things that makes life easy for both the implementers, your respondents, and the users of what you are doing. And definitely you need to bring to the fore the novelty that comes with it. And Chairperson, I'm happy you touched on the issue of innovation, which here is related to novelty. Ethical implications are standard in what we do. The 6 other issues that I want us to reflect on is, these are technical issues, and as a young statistician, you always need to demonstrate the competencies and the capacities that, one, you have, used it in the past, and the outputs that have come off thereof. and two, the team that you are putting together, the competencies that they have, and what they have done in the past. So your assemblage of the team that you are going to use remain critical in the process of writing the proposal. We need not write a proposal without thinking through the risk assessment of it. That is the only way we can identify the potential challenges and demonstrate to our funders that we have clarity in our minds on how we're going to surmount this. All our project proposals should have clear and appropriate knowledge transfer strategies. Definitely, this is what funders are looking out for because they want to see the sustainability, the impact that your work is going to have. So if you don't have a knowledge transfer strategy, the next question is, what is going to happen if you are no more in this space? This is because we want our impact should be felt for the next generations to come. So you need to clearly have to outline the appropriate and creative pathways. And here I underscore the point that the pathways should not just be outlined, but they have to be creative in a way of engagement, not just doing a project proposal and say that all of you come together, let me disseminate my results. We've moved away from that point of view. We need to do contextual engagement once the results have been created. Let us think about the generic statistics business process mapping model that I talked about. The 4 phases that I talked about, the last one being an assessment of the work that we are doing. The involvement of those that are going to use the data right from the start of it through to it. And here what I emphasize is their contemplations on whether they have to use your project findings or use another project findings. If we always don't think about this, we always will say that I do my work and they don't use it. You forget that your users of your data have alternatives. So I sit with my colleagues and I tell them that now the private sector is producing data. Now CSOs are producing data. Users would always have to choose between data from NSO, data from other agencies, and why would they have to choose yours? So if you embark on a project proposal, you need to think about the contemplations of users on the criteria that they are going to use to choose the use of your project findings, rather than just thinking that because I'm a statistician, because I have a PhD, because I have a master's, because I belong to the National Statistical Office, they would use it. They are not obliged. Now they have options and they need to choose across this. Lastly, in the space of the technical considerations is that it is not every project proposal that has to go to an external funder. A project proposal will have to ask the question, why am I not funding it myself? It's a personal undertaking. Think about the progression that I talked about. Why is my institution not funding it? Why is my government not funding it? Why am I not doing co-funding? Why do I think that it's only this institution that has to fund this project proposal? So there's the need to make a convincing case on the choice of source of funding and present why alternative funding sources are not ideal in this case. I touch on the duration, budgeting, and engaging funders, which I've highlighted some of them in the past. You cannot outline project objectives that are not consistent with the duration, because it's not everything that could be achieved in a year or 2 or 3. So once you are setting up your project, we all remember the SMART objectives that were taught in the classroom. This is where we are talking about that the objectives of the project proposal should align with the duration. More importantly is that every funding has a structure. All the international organizations that are around the globe work with funding sources that are over a 1-year period, 2-year period, 3-year period. And that is why immediately you conceptualize a project, the next thing you need to do is who is going to fund and what is the cycle of funding for that funder. And you need to align the duration of your thoughts with that of the funding structure. And you should always know that the duration and funding are tied to track record, because nobody is going to say that you've done project in 1 year, so you'll be able to do a project in 10 years. This is how funders think. Immediately they ask you, you're asking for money from me for 3 years. Is there a track record that you've done a project over a 3-year period? And the argument from their point of view is pretty simple. The risk associated with running a project for 3 years is not the same as the risk associated with running a project for 6 months. So the duration and funding are always tied to the track record that you have demonstrated in the past. And then here I highlight what I talked about earlier on. Important to be realistic by taking into considerations all the potential risk. Sincerity is demanded in the budgeting of your project. You need to justify each cost item. You need to align your technical and financial costing, your human effort. You need to distinguish between what your government is paying for you, what your institution is paying for you, vis-a-vis the extra time that you need for purposes of the project. So clear definition of your level of effort should be put out there. And as I said earlier on, the co-funding structure, the comprehensiveness should be taken into consideration. Remember, the key word for the funder is value for money. Cost-benefit analysis. Alignment of thought, I touched on it earlier on. It is a marketplace. Project proposals will go to the market. And what I mean by that is that it is going to be competitively responded to. What that means is that excellence is relative. So it might be excellent, but when we say excellence, you need to think about the fact that there are other funding demands on the funder in terms of other project proposals. So here I highlight the fact that excellence is relative. And as I said, your ability to deliver is key. On this slide, I've highlighted most of the issues. The point that I want to talk about is the fourth bullet, which has to do with convey genuine interest in and convey genuinity in terms of interest, understanding, capability, and enthusiasm to do that. You can only do that not only on the face of the project proposal that you've written, but in your previous engagement, in your unsolicited writings, how you've engaged with the issue. Don't wait for a project proposal to demonstrate your capability, your understanding, and your interest. Right from day one, if you have opportunities like this, as we sit on this virtual engagement, come up with issues that would demonstrate your innermost interest to undertake a project proposal. And for all you know, somebody will pick up gradually your interest and will be interested in funding your thoughts going forward. This is my last slide. I know I've exceeded my 25 minutes, but I'm going to be very quick on this. I leave you with 5 key issues. Getting into the space of project proposal writing requires a change in mindset. The change in mindset are the issues that I've highlighted. It's a public good. You are progressing to become a technocrat. And you are starting off as a civil servant. Think through your personal development plan on how you're going to become a technocrat. Gradually, you need to build the capacities that are evolving. You need to be at the frontiers of knowledge. You cannot be in this space of proposal writing or undertaking projects when you are not at the frontiers of knowledge. You don't want to know what machine learning is. You don't want to know what deep learning is. You don't want to know what citizens' data is. You don't want to know artificial intelligence is. These are the frontiers of the knowledge that we are dealing with now. So you need to be at the frontiers. I've highlighted the issue of genuineness. You demonstrate it right from the beginning. You don't wait for your project proposal to do that. You form collaborations and ultimately are aligned very well with what the chairperson said. You need to have established impact. So in the last couple of months, what I've been doing is, and this is what I want to share with you. This is a community that we've highlighted the need for collaboration, the need for coordination, and the need for partnership. It's a statistics community. And I keep asking, the only way we can get partnership influence what we do is when we have a clear understanding of what partnerships are. Attributes of effective partnership: commitment, appreciating the fact that there are hierarchies in partnerships, sequencing of partnership, complementarities around it. So I keep on highlighting these issues ahead of the development of a project proposal, and I need to share with young statisticians. I talked about this for the first time in the last United Nations World Development Forum, and just after my presentation, somebody approached me saying that this is a public good, young man. We need to find a way of measuring partnerships and making sure that other issues, not just only data and statistics, benefit from the attributes of effective partnership. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And once again, I'm happy to associate with the celebration of the legacy. And I'm hoping that we can continue this young statistician initiative to change the narrative going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, professeur. Je n'ai pas voulu vous couper. Vous avez épuisé le temps. Mais comme la présentation était très intéressante, je n'ai pas voulu vous couper. Donc, on note que le professeur a vraiment campé le débat sur l'autonomisation des jeunes statisticiens, qui est vraiment le but du programme TACUM des jeunes statisticiens. Il a aussi relaté le fait qu'il faut une évolution technologique, il faut des partenaires, il faut aussi des nouvelles initiatives. Et le plus important, c'est la gouvernance des données qui doit être quelque chose qui doit être intégré dans la pratique du statisticien. En ce qui concerne les projets pour un financement, il a relaté les différents points, à savoir l'environnement, qui est un aspect très important, la capacité, le recensement des domaines. Et on a un document de taille qui est la feuille de route de la transformation et de la modernisation de la statistique qui permet aujourd'hui de camper les différents domaines en statistique sur lesquels les jeunes statisticiens peuvent s'investir pour faire une recherche. Il y a aussi relaté la structure organisationnelle avec le domaine de développement, le cycle de proposition pour le financement, qui commence par la conceptualisation de l'idée et ensuite une collaboration pour aligner le raisonnement de la recherche qui doit être calé à ce qui se fait actuellement. Il y a aussi l'élaboration du cadre qui pourrait être présenté sur un plan politique, c'est-à-dire que le projet doit être un projet qui doit être compréhensible par les autorités pour pouvoir bénéficier d'un financement. Et il faut prendre en compte aussi les aspects d'innovation, les aspects de technique qui doivent aller à l'élaboration du travail. Et le dernier point, c'est la budgétisation et la structuration financière qui implique les bailleurs de fonds. Et pour cet aspect-là, il faut un excellent projet qui est enthousiaste et qui pourra être proposé aux bailleurs pour un financement. Il a terminé par le changement d'état d'esprit qui doit être une constante chez les jeunes statisticiens, qui doit aussi se renforcer, avoir les capacités nécessaires. Il doit être authentique. Il doit avoir aussi une collaboration. Il ne doit pas être quelqu'un qui travaille uniquement dans son bureau, mais il doit créer des alliances et une collaboration afin d'avoir un impact sur ce projet. Merci beaucoup, professeur, pour ce brillante prénote. Maintenant, and a quick reminder for please stay active in the chat. We welcome your question and feedback through the session. Following this inspirational keynote, we will have a panel discussion, which our discussion addressing some case specific question. The panel comprises for distinguished experts with a mix of expertise and experience. They will be sharing their experience and perspective in relation to the topic discussion. Now I have the pleasure to invite Dr. McDonald G. Obudo, Director General, Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, who have been with the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics since 1995, rising through the rank to this current role as the Director General. He holds a PhD in statistics and both a master and bachelor degree in statistics and mathematics from Jomo Kenya University of Agriculture and Technology. Removed for this leadership in 2097 Kenya population and hosting census, he was honored with the prestigious Moran of the Order of the Burning Speed. For this exemplary contribution, Dr. Obudo is deeply passionate about empowering and supporting the youth, championing initiatives that nurture young talent and building the next generation of statisticians to drive innovation and sustainable development. Dr. McDonald, in your experience, what are the best ways to engage young people in statistical work and data-driven projects? How is the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics creating a supporting environment for young statisticians to innovate and contribute to addressing emerging data needs? You have a floor, Dr. McDonald.
Thank you so much for the chance that is given to me. I would really express my gratitude for having been given this chance to be part of this panel. One is really to connect with the young statisticians. This is a group that is at the center of my heart because I know the future of statistical development relies heavily on our young statisticians. They need to take the mantle and ensure that we get to the heights that are not been achieved before. The second one is the celebration that we are having today for our great leader and a mentor to many of us, Oliver Chinganya, who has really given contributions in the statistical world throughout the globe, because his work spans beyond Africa, and this is an achievement that we all celebrate. He's also the one that has made, has ensured that the Young Statisticians Association was formed, and he has carried that baby to this time that we are able to now link up with them. Now, just as we are getting into this, I would just like to make one comment or two. The presentation that has been given by Professor Samuel is really powerful and well articulated, to the extent that I'm sure if we use this properly, then we would be able to leverage on the the support that we are able to get from beyond the government, or beyond our government, because currently in the African situation, resources are very limited, and especially when it comes to the support of statistics, we need to go beyond it, because we are not able to satisfy our needs by what the governments are giving us, and so we will depend on donors and other partners to really support the statistical work. And so that's why it is really important for the young statisticians to get to know how then would we approach this space to ensure that we are able to have resources that would propel us to do what is expected of our mandate. Now, back to the question that I've been asked, I don't think I would have any better way of explaining it rather than using the practical examples that we have had as a Bureau of Statistics, because that is actually very practical and not based on theory. Some of the things that we have been doing to demonstrate what we expect of the young statisticians. One, this is a group that have a lot of power. It's a generation that is really very fast when it comes to technology. They were actually born in the era of technology, and so it is very easy for them to adapt. So to really ensure that we get the maximum potential out of them, it then requires us to properly guide them, encourage them, and to ensure that whatever initiatives that they are coming up with are impactful in addressing our needs as a society, so that they could also contribute to this profession. So that is one thing that is of interest to me, that in the Bureau here, we have quite a number of young staff. So that means they are quite, the majority of the workforce at the moment is composed of young statisticians. And in this case, we need to fast track their growth in an accelerated manner, to expose them to learn more quickly than before, so that we can bridge the gap between the older generation that is living over a short period of time, and leaving the mantle to our young statisticians to move with it. So some of the things that we have done, and this goes beyond just having those who have joined, but also preparing the young statisticians who are still at the university. One is by having the hackathons. We have for a lot of data that we have in our which we are also uploading on our website. Once we do a survey or we do a report, the data that has generated that information is actually archived in uploaded on our website. And so we now ask young people, young statisticians, to get the data, use it, and ensure that they now come up with some innovation. They display their skills and use it to do further analysis. And from there, we then form committees, a committee that would now vet the team and get to see among the university students who have used the data that we have used before, to come up with something new. Who is the best? Who is the second best? Who is the third best? And what we have done with that is to ensure that after ranking, we celebrate them, we appreciate them. So in 2022, we held our first hackathon, which was supported by Strathmore University, Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, together with the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics and the sponsors. And we have had, in this case, the ONS coming on board to support this. And for number one, 2, and 3, what we did to them was to take them to Poland for a conference. And that really became a very good motivation to them. Then in the following year, which is 2023, we held the second hackathon, again supported by ONS. ONS is the Office of the National Statistics UK, whom we are collaborating with. And the winners were taken to Morocco to attend the data science meeting. Then 2024, last year, again, we had another hackathon. In this case, it was supported by African Development Bank. And this team was the number 1, 2, 3 were awarded by with a laptop. And then the runners-up were given the tablet. And so this is one way of encouraging our upcoming statisticians to participate in projects in statistics. Then we are also running internships and attachments for those who are still in school. After their third year, they would come for attachment, and so that they connect the practical, I mean the theory they have in college and the practical of what we are practicing. Then for the internship, they come after graduation, and we are able to have them for a whole year. Chances are limited, but we have those that are supported by the larger government and those that are supported by the Statistics Sweden. So we are able to offer them knowledge for a whole year so that they are prepared. When they come, we connect them to mentors who will be able to coach them over that period of time and also do the supervision. Then when it comes to the element of university students who are still in school and they would want to get to see what is it that is in practice, universities do invite the bureau. And so when we go there, we are able to now to share with them the areas of interest, where what is it that you need to do to learn in some of the different statistical activities that we have. And so we are able now to tutor them or mentor them and help them get to deal with their career paths before they come out. Then it is also an interest to encourage our young staff to be members of Young Statisticians and also take up leadership. As we talk, the vice president, who is actually deputizing Chairman Napo, is a staff here in the bureau. That is Lina Ngumba, who is the vice president, and she has done a great job across Africa, and we celebrate her. So it is she's a good example of the kind of leadership that we expect of the young statistician here in the bureau, and we expect this to be resonated across the continent. Now we are also running very friendly innovatives through ensuring that we expose our young officers or young statisticians to projects that would bring out the quality they have, the kind of innovations that they have. And I can demonstrate this by the fact that when we're developing our master sampling frame, we had different groups. We formed different groups to come up with systems that would help us do the listing in the field. And so they use different packages or applications to come up with ways of capturing information so that we are able to create the frame. And when we compared this, we could now merge some of the thoughts that they had and came up with a very good frame. This was courtesy of a very young team that I did not know would be able to handle that kind of assignment. And we were very successful, and so we are very happy to have the kind of fellows that we are with. Now, we are also exposing them to the kind of global support that we have through technical assistance, just to ensure that training is offered across the board. We would bring technical support from our developed partners and get teams to be tutored in different areas so that they become better. Then when it comes to training and exchange programs, together with Statistics Sweden, we are actually running a basic course in statistics, which would look at right from the beginning, from the from the proposal discussion, project proposal discussion up to the dissemination, we look at the array of activities that we are meant to deal with, coming up with the objectives, coming up with the methodology, doing a study, relaying your data into the servers, cleaning it, coming up with the with analysis, doing the reports, and also disseminating. So we have the array of all that kind of activities just to ensure that we expose them properly, because some of them would be joining as economists, some would be still statisticians, but they might not have covered fully the aspects that we would want them to get exposed to. So this is something that we are able to run with them very well. We have even gone to the extent of now having tutors within us, so that trained amongst themselves, and linking up with the benchmarking with Zambia statistics also, just to see how they are doing their things and how we are doing ours. I'm just about to finish. Then we are also supporting them through research publications. They do the research and present them in conferences, which then would mean that they are exposed to the world and get to see what is happening around the world. So we have also done pooling of training through pooling of them, so that we go beyond the boundaries of the areas that they have been posted to work in, so that they are able to get knowledge in different areas, so that they are also exposed to any transfers and learn more in the process of them being in the bureau. So these are some of the things that we have been doing with our young statisticians, just to expose them to the extent that they are ready and prepared to face the future in a manner that would help the statistical development in the bureau. So my only challenge now to the team is Kenya is going to host Data Festival in 2026, that is next year. And it is important that the young statisticians get to see the kind of statistical innovations that they can use to showcase the ability to ensure that the world gets to know what Africa is able to come up with. And so this is something that we would need to share with you, so that come next year, you have projects that you'll use to showcase. Come to Kenya, come to Nairobi, and be with us to ensure that the occasion is very successful. Let me leave it at that. 7 minutes was too little. We have a lot to share, but I really thank you for having given me the chance to be part of this process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director General. Thank you for your response. We will now invite Ms. Pamela Kakande Nokunzo, statistician UNECA IC. Pamela is highlight trained in statistics, public health, and demography. Gained working experience from Uganda Bureau of Statistics and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. She has vast expertise in implementing population-based research. She is committed to improve the use of data-driven evidence for decision-making using cost-effective and timeline approach. She has provided technical support towards statistical development in select African countries, majorly through capacity training in civil registration and vital statistics. Ms. Pamela, what is your practical experience in the handling capacity training project to create an impact on statistical development in Africa? What key lessons have you learned from your experience that you would recommend to young statisticians embarking in our project? The floor is yours, Ms. Pamela. You have 7.5 minutes.
Thank you, moderator. And good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. So I'll straight away dive into my 7.5 minutes and start by saying that given that national statistical offices are pivotal for statistical development in Africa, I'll use this for illustration and responding to the question that has been posed to me. So from my experience, when designing an impactful statistical capacity strengthening project that can attract funding and be implemented successfully, several key considerations should be taken into account. So one, I list about 4 or 5. One is first and foremost is to identify the training need. This can be demand-driven through various fora, or you may have to conduct a capacity needs assessment or review previous similar training reports or feedback that has been given to identify the specific statistical needs and gaps of the target audience. So there are several tools that have been developed for national statistical offices to assess and analyze skills of their staff and strategically decide on what to prioritize. And one such tool is the Statistical Training Needs Assessment Tool, which is also called STAT, that is available. So after you have identified your training need, second is you should engage and involve all the relevant stakeholders, including the development partners, the government agencies, the NGOs, and the private sector from the onset to ensure the project addresses real challenges of the National Statistical System or Office. Most important here is engaging them from the onset. And at the same time, you need to build partnerships and collaboration to enhance ownership and sustainability of the project. This will also avoid duplication of efforts and undue conflict that leads to wastage of resources. We've seen cases where the same audience is trained on the same topic by different institutions. So that's kind of a wastage because of lack of partnerships and collaboration. So partnerships in capacity building projects should be made with universities, regional statistical training centers, which has in the past led to curriculum development and training projects in some of the fields. So the third area is you need to design a training program that are context specific and relevant to the participants' roles and responsibilities. So the training program should ensure to utilize diverse training methods. That's they can be workshops, online courses, and hands-on projects to cater for different learning styles. So the training program should therefore leverage on technology and use authentic, verifiable, latest methods and software to keep pace with the evolving statistical approaches. For instance, if it's a training on data management, you need to opt for accessible and versatile tools like R, Python, Excel, instead of the licensed softwares that may be difficult to access and maintain with time. At the same time, we need to assess the existing infrastructure, including the software and hardware, and ensure that you have the appropriate human resources to implement the project that you are aiming to undertake. So you need to ask yourself, are you really training data managers and not persons that do not handle data? And then also be sure that do they have computers that they will have to work with? Do they have the relevant software? And then also, can they access the data that is required for your training that you intend to undertake? Then to create an impact, you must also have a plan for long-term sustainability by integrating capacity strengthening into existing systems and processes. One of the key things here is to align the training project goals with the national and international policies, and then the statistical frameworks to enhance relevance and impact. How do you do this? You may want to make sure that your title or objectives refer to improving like a given specific SDG indicator. Like a typical example I would give you is like strengthening skills in data management to effectively report on SDG indicator 16.9.1, which is on proportion of children under 5 years of age who have been registered with a civil authority. This can attract funding from an international organization that is responsible for global monitoring of this particular indicator. And additionally, for sustainability, you need to aim for your project to develop local expertise and reduce on reliance on external consultants. Further to A, you need to establish clear indicators for success and a framework for monitoring progress. For instance, again, with the same example on management of data, if you have a training on management of, say, mortality data, you need to check on the application of the skill by ensuring that a regular usable report is produced and actually responds to a development agenda. That way, you're trying to ensure that there is sustainability built. There are several success metrics that can be used to measure, to ensure sustainability and success, but given the time, we won't go into those. Then finally, I have also learned that exciting statistical capacity strengthening can be achieved through knowledge sharing and networking. So an implementable project for sustainable development should facilitate follow-up forums for sharing experiences and best practices through collaborations and networks to build supportive communities that can bridge the regional inequalities that may exist. I must say, designing an impactful statistical capacity strengthening project for a national statistical office or the national statistical system in Africa necessitates a thoughtful strategic approach and leveraging on emerging issues. I thank you and end at that point. Over to you, moderator.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Pamela, to respect this time. Merci pour la réponse. Donc, pour les deux panélistes qu'on vient d'avoir, le directeur général est revenu un peu sur l'importance de l'utilisation des jeunes statisticiens dans l'environnement de la statistique pour leur permettre d'avoir les capacités. Il est revenu aussi sur le renforcement des capacités qui concerne qui est un aspect très important dans le domaine de l'autonomisation des jeunes statisticiens. Et il a aussi relaté l'aspect de la formation au niveau de l'université, avec des renforcements de capacités et des systèmes de motivation qui sont faits à ce niveau-là pour intégrer cette nouvelle génération dans le sillage du professionnalisation de la statistique. Et pour Ms. Pamela, en ce qui concerne les projets viables, le premier aspect qu'elle a relaté, c'est l'identification des besoins en matière de formation. Donc, il faut un renforcement de capacité et aussi avoir des outils qui sont développés. Elle a aussi relaté le fait de participer, la participation avec la collaboration pour permettre la viabilité du projet, l'utilisation de nouveaux logiciels. Aussi, sur le plan de la durabilité, il faut une collaboration au niveau local. Il faut pas seulement que ça soit un projet qui est financé et mis en œuvre par des internationaux. Il faut aussi une expertise locale pour assurer le succès et le suivi. Maintenant, please stay active in the chat. We will welcome you ask questions and feedbacks with this session. Our panel also comprises young.
We can't hear you, Kadi.
Our panel also comprises young professionals that will share their insight on this topic of the webinar. Without further ado, I welcome Ms. Christabella Nabujenjo, Assistant Lecturer, Marakere University. Ms. Namyungeni is Young Statistician, Academy and Earlier Career Award recipient at Marakere University. She has been based at the School of Statistics and Planning, Makerere University, since 2022. She sold a bachelor degree in statistics and master's degree in statistics, major biostatistics, and is currently pursuing a PhD in public health, major biostatistics at Makerere University. Christabella has contributed to the development of project proposals in areas that including mental health, HIV, and non-communicable disease, and NCD, machine learning application in healthcare and capacity building. Christabella is also passionate about sharing knowledge, learning from others, and inspiring fellow young statisticians in their professional growth. Ms. Christabella, considering the emerging contemporary method, including cutting-edge methodology such as machine learning, geospatial information system, and big data analytics, how is your statistical training school integrating such new area in the curriculum to empower young statisticians to take real-world problems related to statistical development? You have the floor, Ms. Christabella, for 7.5 minutes.
Thank you so much. I am deeply very honored to be part of this webinar to honor the founder of the Takwimu Young African Statisticians Program, Mr. Oliver Chengaya. And I'm also grateful for the opportunity to speak to fellow young African statisticians today. So in regards to the topic, may I say that it's not an overstatement to say that applying machine learning and big data analytics is one of the most profound scientific challenges in today's era. And this is something that is widely accepted. It's an accepted point of view at the School of Statistics and Planning, where we have recognized the need for a new program that combines skills in both statistics and computer science to try and address this in our context. So I'll go ahead and share some of our current endeavors to incorporate this in our curriculum, but I'll start off with a bit of some background. So in 2023, that was late 2023, we pioneered a statistics and data science working group at the School of Statistics and Planning. And this working group is comprised of young statisticians that are academics at the school. And this working group is overseen by the Dean, Dr. Banga Margaret, and the Head of Department Planning and Applied Statistics. And the goal of the working group is to identify gaps in teaching and research in the areas of machine learning, GIS, big data analytics, so as to improve our curriculum and activities at the school. And this goal basically guides our activities. So number one, together with our senior colleagues at the school, we have developed a master's program that combines both skills in statistics and computer science. To enable students to be able to tackle the challenges related to modern statistical development. So I'll briefly mention some of these challenges. First of all, there is limited use of the already available data sets. We all know we're increasingly having unstructured data, and however, we are lacking skills to access and analyze this data. Another challenge is the issue of data quality, and this is a common characteristic with big data, and still we lack skills to deal with that kind of big data. Then one last challenge I can talk about is the issue of resource constraints. We all know that unstructured data can no longer be stored on our computers, as we all know, and which is creating the need for cloud computing options, and also the necessary skills are required, which are still scarce. So we are hopeful that this master's program that we have developed will equip students with the necessary skills to deal with the challenges related to this modern statistical development. And we are pushing this course through. It's at the final stage, approval stages within the university. We are very optimistic that by next year, it will be up and running. And given the urgency to have these professionals out there. Then secondly, I'll talk about an interesting issue. So we all know that machine learning, big data analytics, artificial intelligence gained popularity in the recent fourth industrial revolution. And yet most of us had been trained in the classical statistical methods, or most of us who had been trained in statistics. And most of us refer to the classical statistical methods as the traditional statistical methods. So we realized this as a training school that we needed to enhance the teaching of our courses that were already running at the school. So we decided to be proactive, and we started off with in-house capacity trainings of staff, our staff at the school, and PhD students at the school, to enable them use modern statistical methods in the day-to-day teaching and research. So we focused on the basic modern statistical methods that can be learned by anyone, even if one hasn't sat in a data science course. So for example, we started off with trainings in R and Python. We went ahead to learn, train in different ways we can access the enormous data on the internet, away from the structured data sets that we are used to. So there's data on the World Bank website, there's data on Yahoo Finance, Wikipedia, a lot of demographic data, population health, economic data that is available. So we learned different ways of accessing this data through web scraping. And the whole point of training our fellow staff at the school was to transform the learning experience of our bachelor's and master's students that were already taking on these courses, so that they can access bigger data sets with more coverage, and so that they can now come back and do what they already know, which is now analyzing and gaining insights from these data sets. The third thing that we are doing is we are currently developing a proposal to understand the landscape for the adoption and acceptability of machine learning, big data analytics, and artificial intelligence within industry and government. So this is a proposal we are currently writing and developing. But specifically, we are concentrating on what their entry level skills are in order to take on fresh graduates. And here we are talking about the bachelor's graduates in statistics and also the masters. So this is something we're also looking at. And indeed, we plan to start small with MDAs, that is for the public sector. We also plan to look at the small and medium enterprises, that is the private for profit. And then we also plan to look at case studies of non-government organizations, that is the private not-for-profit. So, and this will help us to understand the demand for our statistics graduates so that we can train them better and so that they are useful when they go out there. So I'll briefly talk about our future endeavors in terms of incorporating these technologies and methodologies in our curriculum. So we are on the lookout for collaborations and partnerships for shared learning for our students and staff at the school for shared learning. Okay, so we're also looking at partnerships for internship for our students too, and also fellowships for our staff, because we believe when our students are attached to different organizations where machine learning and big data analytics is being applied, then they can better be prepared to contribute to a statistical development, most of the modern statistical development. And we also believe that if our staff have these fellowships in the different organizations, then they're better positioned to teach and supervise from an applied point of view. Yes, so as I conclude, I need to mention that the School of Statistics and Planning received facilitation from the East African community in 2022. It facilitated a capacity building in the area of machine learning and artificial intelligence for our staff. And this gave birth to the idea of the Statistics and Data Science Working Group. And since then, we have, through this working group, we have been able to do a number of activities, to mention but a few, some of which I have mentioned briefly. And all this is done on a voluntary basis, given the passion of all these young academics to transform teaching and research at the school in the area of machine learning. So this speaks to the power of partnerships and collaborations in such a big way. I beg to stop here. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Back to you. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Ms. Pamela, pour votre réponse. Pour faire juste un résumé, nous avons noté l'importance de l'apprentissage automatique dans l'employabilité des jeunes statisticiens. Et pour faire face aux défis du monde et la mutation de la statistique, surtout la qualité des données et les big data, le traitement de certaines données, donc l'apprentissage automatique est un outil qui pourra permettre de répondre à ces défis-là. Il a aussi parlé de l'utilisation de méthodes anecdotes. Donc, il est important maintenant que les jeunes statisticiens soient très proactifs pour qu'ils puissent utiliser de nouvelles méthodes, et ça se fera par le renforcement des capacités. Il y a aussi la disponibilité des données. Elle a relaté le fait de l'utilisation, l'acquisition des données sur Internet et sur les autres plateformes. Et en ce qui concerne l'université, elle a parlé du programme qui permet aussi maintenant l'adoption de l'apprentissage automatique au niveau des industries, des entreprises et au niveau des gouvernements et des ONG. Ça, c'est pour mieux gérer tout ce qui est question de demande en matière de statistiques et que les programmes universitaires maintenant soient des programmes qui sont un peu corrélés à ce qui se fait dans le monde professionnel. Merci beaucoup, Miss Pamela, pour cet exposé. Last but not least, I invite our very own chairpoint Takwimuya's program, Mr. Sasir Napu. Sasir is an economist at the International Monetary Fund, IMF, working with the Togo office, which provides extensive experience in monitoring and evaluation and data analysis at the African Development Bank. He also served as a tax statistician at the Togo Review Authority between 2014 and 2018. He is a lecturer in advanced economics at the National School of Applied Economics and SEA in Côte d'Ivoire. While actively involved in the research, filed with 2 scientific research papers published today. Sasir holds a master's degree in statistics and economics and currently pursuing his PhD at the NCR doctoral program. Monsieur Napo, how can young statisticians leverage advancement in technology, data analytics, and artificial intelligence to create innovative and impactful statistical projects? Can you share an innovative project you were involved in that made a significant impact? What challenge did you face? You have 7.5 minutes, Mr. Napo.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Moderator. I think I will try to find a balance in the language. I will switch to French so that we get some sort of balance in terms of language of speaking. Merci beaucoup pour la question. Je pense que les avancées technologiques, l'analyse des données, l'intelligence artificielle, nous offrent aujourd'hui des outils et des opportunités sans précédent, il faut le dire, pour relever des défis complexes. Et à mon avis, voici comment on peut exploiter ces innovations. Moi, je relève 5 aspects. Je pense que le premier aspect serait vraiment la formation et le développement en continu. Le paysage technologique évolue rapidement et les jeunes statisticiens doivent constamment acquérir de nouvelles compétences, non seulement à travers leur formation initiale, mais aussi en suivant des cours de renforcement continu, comme des cours en ligne, la participation à des séminaires, ou encore en rejoignant des groupes professionnels axés sur ces thématiques-là, notamment l'analyse des données, la modélisation, l'apprentissage machine, l'intelligence artificielle et autres domaines connexes. Et le point ici, c'est que pour pouvoir bénéficier et impacter à travers ces avancées technologiques, il est important de pouvoir d'abord bien se préparer en tant que jeune statisticien, bien s'équiper à pouvoir les utiliser. Donc ça, c'est le premier aspect. Le deuxième aspect, c'est l'accès à ces outils d'analyse avancée. Aujourd'hui, la technologie a quand même démocratisé l'accès à des logiciels statistiques très puissants, comme aujourd'hui, on va parler de R, Python, ainsi qu'à des plateformes d'analyse des données comme Tableau, Power BI. Donc, ces outils nous permettent aujourd'hui de réaliser des analyses complexes, de pouvoir créer des visualisations interactives, par exemple, et puis de communiquer de façon beaucoup plus efficace nos résultats à des publics assez variés. Donc, la première des choses, c'est se préparer, et la deuxième chose, c'est pouvoir avoir accès. En général, le défi que nous rencontrons dans l'accès à ces outils-là, c'est que quand je parle des logiciels comme R et Python, ce sont des logiciels qui nécessitent un peu de la programmation, des langages de programmation. Et en général, du moins de parce que j'ai eu à constater par le passé, pour ceux qui ont un background mathématique, ça va, mais ceux qui viennent dans le domaine statistique avec des backgrounds d'économie sociale, parfois ont du mal à adopter ces technologies-là. Mais ce que je dis, c'est qu'il ne faudrait pas avoir peur. Une fois qu'on est dans le domaine, on a la capacité de pouvoir apprendre ces langages-là et pouvoir utiliser ces logiciels. La troisième chose que j'aimerais ajouter, c'est dans la préparation des projets dans le domaine. Je pense qu'il est important de pouvoir aussi assurer l'inclusion d'outils qui nous assurent une collecte efficiente et une bonne qualité des données. Aujourd'hui, les outils numériques comme les applications mobiles, ODK, Toolbox, ou bien encore les outils Android qui existent aujourd'hui nous permettent quand même une collecte plus rapide, plus précise et plus rentable, on va dire, des données, notamment dans les zones sous-équipées. Et donc, utiliser ces outils-là, les intégrer dans les propositions de projet pour assurer quand même la qualité des données est très importante aussi, à mon avis. Et le quatrième élément, c'est, en ce qui concerne l'intelligence artificielle et l'apprentissage automatique, je pense que ce sont des éléments qui vraiment peuvent améliorer les projets statistiques, notamment grâce à des modèles prédictifs, à la reconnaissance des schémas, à la détection d'anomalies. Comme par exemple, comment combiner les images satellites avec l'intelligence artificielle pour pouvoir permettre, par exemple, la surveillance de la production agricole, le développement urbain ou encore la déforestation. Et la dernière chose, je pense que le professeur Samuel l'a évoqué, mettre l'accent sur les applications éthiques et inclusives. Il faudrait que dans la proposition de projet, il faudrait quand même pouvoir s'assurer que les considérations éthiques sont prises en compte, mais aussi l'inclusion. Ne laisser personne pour compte. Les populations défavorisées doivent pouvoir aussi faire partie de l'impact que nous voulons avoir à travers nos propositions de projet. S'agissant d'un projet innovant que j'ai eu à conduire, je pense que je ne vais pas aller loin, je vais juste partager brièvement dans mon ancienne fonction dans une institution multilatérale, où je suis arrivé dans un contexte où, dans une unité de suivi-évaluation qui était en conflit avec le département des opérations. Or, ces deux départements doivent fonctionner de pair. Le suivi-évaluation a besoin des données des opérations pour pouvoir faire des travaux de suivi-évaluation. Malheureusement, il y avait une situation conflictuelle où j'étais tenu d'aller dans les documents de projet, aller document par document pour collecter les données, créer carrément une base qui existe déjà ailleurs, ou encore, mais qui peut être incomplète. Et la chance pour moi, c'est que c'est tombé à une époque où il y avait une évaluation institutionnelle qui avait été faite, qui avait relevé le manque d'efficience dû à l'absence d'un système centralisé. Ce qui m'a donné l'idée de proposer la mise en place d'un système d'information de gestion vraiment centralisé et totalement automatisé qui prend en compte tous les besoins des différents départements. Et j'ai été donc le coordonnateur de ce projet-là. Imaginez pour une équipe projet qui avait l'habitude, pour par exemple préparer la proposition de projet, qui passait des semaines à préparer la note conceptuelle du projet. Aujourd'hui, avec ce système d'information, le draft de la proposition est généré automatiquement et permet, avec des informations pré-remplies, qui sauvent beaucoup de temps aux task managers, où aujourd'hui, ils peuvent en une semaine raisonnablement préparer une nouvelle note conceptuelle sans forcément aller à la recherche de beaucoup d'informations. Donc, voilà un peu ce que j'avais coordonné et ça a été vraiment impactant. Ayant aussi intégré des tableaux de bord avec Tableau, Power BI. Et ça, c'est du côté opérationnel, du côté du suivi évaluation, générer automatiquement le rapport de suivi, le rapport d'évaluation, bien sûr avec la petite touche humaine qui va avec. Concernant les challenges, rapidement, je crois que j'en ai deux que je pourrais partager. Le premier challenge le plus important pour moi dans cet exercice, c'est votre capacité à obtenir l'adhésion de toutes les parties prenantes à votre projet. Comment assurer le buying de votre projet. Je crois que c'est très important. Et le second aspect aussi, c'est la nécessité très souvent d'apprendre de nouvelles connaissances, de nouveaux outils. À titre d'exemple, dans le cas de la coordination de ce projet, il a fallu pour moi, par exemple, apprendre le développement avec tableau pour pouvoir concevoir des tableaux de bord interactifs. Et il fallait le faire. Il a fallu utiliser de nouveaux outils de gestion de projets comme Jira. Il fallait le faire. Je n'avais pas ces compétences-là, mais tout au long de ce projet, il a fallu que je l'apprenne et que je puisse les utiliser. Voilà un peu ce que j'ai voulu partager par rapport à cette question. Merci beaucoup, Madame modérateur. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Merci, M. Napo. Nous n'avons pas trop de temps. On est dépassé par le temps. Nous n'avons que 10 minutes pour les questions-réponses. Maintenant, les participants qui voudraient prendre la parole pour poser des questions, le micro est à vous. Sinon, nous avons des questions qui sont adressées aux différents panélistes au niveau du panel. On pourrait passer à ces questions-là. Est-ce qu'il y a des participants qui voudraient prendre la parole? Il suffit juste de lever la main, comme ça on va pouvoir savoir si vous voulez prendre la parole ou pas. Donc, sinon, else we have a question for Professor Samuel. How can we break the gap between academia knowledge and practical implementation when writing project proposal? Professor Samuel. Professor Samuel
Madam
is here.
Moderator, do you want me to or we take some questions before we answer, given
Okay.
the time constraints?
Okay, okay. You have a floor. We have a participant who asks you a question. How can we bridge the gap between academia knowledge and practical implementation when we writing project proposal?
Thank you very much. I think that's a very important question, and it relates to what I said earlier on by making sure that your assembling of the team demonstrates competencies and capacities. So when I was doing a lot of project writing, anytime I start off, I think about the project from a multidisciplinary point of view. If you start a project with your own discipline point of view, the chances of missing out on the collaboration and the chances of making your project not having the needed value to surmount whatever problem you've identified is at risk. So the starting point for bridging the bridging the gap between academia and those of us in the industry is our own mindset by starting the project from a multidisciplinary point of view. So once you have that multidisciplinary thought, it gets you to think about people outside your statistics domain who have either the social science background, who have either the health background, or who have any other subject matter that would help in driving your project. The other way we can address the collaboration between academia and us as statisticians is to really think about the institutional engagement. Anytime you belong to a national statistical office that has minimal relationship with the academic world, there is a challenge because you are a technocrat, as I indicated earlier on, or you are hoping to become a technocrat going forward. So one of your major collaborators will be those at the frontiers of knowledge. So institutions should ensure that they sign MOUs with academic institutions based on the respective capacities of the academic institutions within their country or even beyond. And that is what we at Ghana Statistical Service, we are doing. And we have practicalized this to the extent that we are setting up pipelines where data between the statistical office and data that is collected by both researchers and students feed into each other by building a national architecture for our micro data set. So we can tackle it from the individual perspective and also from the institutional perspective. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. Dr. McDonald, you have a question. I would like to know the necessary requirement for attachment at Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. Dr. McDonald, you have a floor.
I'm not sure if the fellow is talking about attachment or internship, but for the case of attachment, it is for those who have done their third year, waiting to go for the fourth and final year. And so they need to be relevant in statistics, economics, or IT. I think for IT, the chances are fewer than those for statistics and economics. For those who are requesting for internship, for internship, there are quite few because it is the Public Service Commission that does that, and we only make requests from them to give us the numbers that we want. They normally give us like almost 90, but with different skills or different disciplines. For the ones that we are taking here, currently December we advertised for 10 chances, courtesy of Statistics Sweden, and the process is on. Our main interest was to get those who are more skilled in data science, and we gave out the specifications. That one ended on the deadline was on 16th of December. So those who applied, the process is on. We are working on the shortlisting so that we could now deal with the subsequent processes. Thank you.
You have another question. Can I know how to apply for it, and if possible, are there some scholarship for some of the statistical course?
I think for scholarships, that one we really don't have. We only sponsor those who are already with us within the establishment. But for outside, we are not able to muster enough resources to support. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this question. Is addressed for all panelists. I would like to ask this: in your experience, what are the key skills young statisticians should focus on developing to remain relevant in the rapidly evolving data landscape, especially with the rise of AI and machine learning? The question is addressed for all panelists. Can the panelists will answer for this question?
I'm happy to take the first shot, then my colleagues will come in. I look at this from the culture that I talked about and from a project proposal writing habit that we are talking about. I mean, if you ever want to give up because your project proposal is not successful, then clearly you have not developed the habit, the culture to progress, as I said, through to become a technocrat. And you've not revisited the issues that I raised in terms of why we are statisticians. If you really imbibe those virtues, the fact that we are part of those responsible for halting the cyclical fluctuations, if you are aware that your work leads to the transformation of lives, then if evolutions are happening, naturally you would be part of those evolutions. You wouldn't allow the evolutions go past you because it's the industry that you find yourself in. It's a responsibility that you've assumed. It's an interest that you've developed. So as and when these evolutions are happening, you go with the pace. So you need to develop that soft interest, that soft desire to ensure that that goal of transforming lives, of halting the cyclical development fluctuations are met. Once you achieve that, in my point of view, it becomes natural. The other is the hard part where do I find information? Who do I connect with? Then I follow through. But we need to invest on the soft side where we feel responsible as part of the process, and then we move along with the contemporary issues. Thank you, Anova.
Okay. Thank you very much for your réponse, professeur. Nous n'avons pas beaucoup de temps et je pense qu'on va passer à l'étape suivante. As indicated earlier, this webinar is special that we will be honoring the founder of the Takwimu Young African Statistician Program, ongoing director of the African Center for Statistics. Monsieur Oliver Chingana is chartered statistician of the Royal Statistics Society UK, which wide experience and knowledge of statistical practice across Africa at both national and international level. Highlight, motivate, and experience with a successful track record and accomplishment in senior role in public and international organization. Monsieur Oliver Chingana, Director is here. You are welcome to share your thoughts on the topic of the day, as well as and deliver your farewell remark to the young statistician on the continent. Mr. Chingana, over to you.
Thank you very much, moderator. Thank you very much for those that I joined on this particular call. I did attend the first 30 minutes of the session, and I had mentioned earlier on I had to rush on the top floor because we have a delegation that is coming to meet the executive secretary, so I had to go and attend that and then go back. So I missed part of the presentations that were made. As it way, I want to thank, first of all, the organizers of this particular session, really, which I find very humbling that you organize this in honor of me, so to speak. And I'm grateful that everyone has found time to be here. But I also want to thank the keynote speaker, Professor Anim, the other speakers that are here, the Dr. McDonald from Kenya, that is also part of this, and the rest of you, including yourself, moderator, and the president of the Takwimu itself. I would not want to speak direct to the issues that we discussed. Perhaps maybe for me, I would like to spend a little bit of time to speak about Takwimu itself, and what it stands for and where we want to take it to. And perhaps where it sits in ECA as I exit next week from the UN Economic Commission for Africa. So I think Takwimu itself, the program itself, it is, as you may know, all of you, it's been institutionalized now in the UN Economic Commission for Africa. That irrespective of the leadership at the Africa Center for Statistics, it should be able to proceed the way it was conceived at the time. And the whole conception of it is to see how we can promote young statisticians to really participate and contribute to the transforming of this continent. Young statisticians have proven, and we all know, that they are key in the development of the statistical area on the continent and beyond the continent, and in various ways of participation. Some of it, I think, the president of Takwimu himself, Sasiri, did mention, in ways that young statisticians can participate. So what I see personally going forward is that this is something that we cannot afford to drop. We can't afford to drop the ball on the Takwimu going forward. We cannot do that, because we have seen across the continent the inadequacy of capacity in different areas of statistics, and especially that there are areas that we need to create linkages that are required. In this case, I'm talking about the academia, I'm talking about the private sector and the public sector, which is where most of us are. How do we create this triangle to make sure that it's actually linked? Because each one of them provides or brings in a reinforcing advantage to the triangle, so to speak. The academia, in my view, we need them in the transforming of this continent, because they have the time, they have the resources. And when I mean about the time is that they have time to do in-depth analysis. You'll all agree with me that a lot of the data that's collected by the National Statistical Offices is data that is never deeply analyzed. And if it is, you find it will be just maybe certain segments or sectors of the data that's analyzed. A lot of it is not, for various reasons. Mainly, I think it's because of resources, the capacity, not about capacity, but the resources in terms of human capacity to be able to do this. And then I think that having to work very closely with the academia, we can make data available to the academia to do in-depth analysis to find out the underlying reason for certain things that we see in the data, or the linkages that we see in the data. I think that the academia can play a very, very big role in there. So the academia must become partners in this process. The professors at the universities, as we all know, they work with students. Why don't we allow them to access this data? And it's a win-win situation in the sense that for even the academia themselves, they'll begin to improve their data, the analysis, by using much more real-time data, or rather very close real-time data, unlike where they have to use perhaps very high level data that's been processed, secondary, thirdly, fourthly, and by the time it's actually analyzed, the data looks so clean that when you look at the p-values, the p-values look very significant, and then you say, oh no, everything is fine. And yet, had they looked at the initial data, the situation would have been different. And I've proven this in many of these places when I go to give seminars. And more recently, I was in Taiwan. I was giving a lecture at the Sinica Institute, their Statistical Institute in Taiwan, Taipei. And you could see that when professors are challenged with that, they really crave to have real-time data, or data that is from the source. Because most of the time, as I said, only that probably had gone several reviews, several cleaning, and so forth, and therefore really not providing the real picture, other than being showing that the results are significant or they are good enough, or indeed perhaps they are the opposite is the case. So I think there is a need for partnership for that, and one of the things I think one of the gains there that we could have is to create some kind of a bridge where the academia can also spend time in the National Statistical Office to learn a little bit more about what I call development statistics, or to be able to associate themselves with the development statisticians. I call myself as a development statisticians, and a blue collar statisticians, so to speak, because we are the ones that are in the trenches. And I think the association, when they are allowed, you can actually see the appreciation from the universities and the research institutions that there's a lot of benefit, because they begin to understand the real situation. So that partnership, to me, I think is Takwimu could ride on, given that the focus is not just the National Statistical Offices, but the focus also is to work with other entities outside the National Statistical Office. In other words, in the National Statistical System, plus now we want to allow the academia to be part of it. The other component that I've been advocating, for is how do we tap into the resources that are available for the private sector? The private sector, as you know, here we are talking about those that have resources in various forms. The telephone providers, for instance, those that run satellites, those that carry information, collect information administratively. How can we work with these people so that we can have access to the data? How can we work with these people that have resources in terms of technology that is required? Today, if you were to ask, for instance, I want a CPI or an inflation number for Ghana for just as an example, Prof. Not being prescriptive, as an example, say, let me have a GDP, CPI for December 2024. The first thing that one does is to go on to the computer and to Google and get a number, and it will have computed. So with the inflation for Ghana in the month of December was this. And in many cases of our countries, again, as an example, we find that some countries, they will have a lag. The figure that you find on their website, published website, is perhaps for October. And yet the user is looking for the figure for December 2023. So the question is that which of those numbers can the person or the researcher use? The figure that you find on a website, you can't defend it because you don't even know how it was calculated. And yet I'm looking for that figure for December. The figure that I have, which can be defended because there's methodology, there's also metadata, is the figure for October. Which one of those can we use? Which one of those can be can be said to be the official statistics? So I think that there is an opportunity to work with the private sector, to bring in innovation, to bring in technology that allows us to begin to estimate for data for now, bringing the necessary skills. But of course, we know that there are skills also from the statistical point of view where we can do that. But we want to use things like artificial intelligence, tapping into the big data. How can we estimate? How can we have a figure which is not there? I think it will be very critical and very difficult very soon for development statistician to say, no, the figure that we have is only for 2022. We are waiting for the data to be collected for us to have the figure for 2024. It will become very difficult to claim or to remain irrelevant because people are looking for the figure for 2024 and we don't have it. So how do we do that? I think that engaging the private sector that have the tools, the means, the Facebook of these days, the Google, the green, we can be able to bridge that gap. What will be important is to be able to register. In other words, to write down what we have done at a particular point, that this is what we did, and it's documented through metadata, so that should there be a question, we can be asked, we can be able to respond because we have documented. Because what we see in Google is not documented. And in fact, if you go back, maybe do the same Google 2 days later, or even a day later, you may even find a different figure altogether. And that becomes very difficult. So I think we need to find ways how we can work with the private very, very closely, how we can make certain estimates very easily, maybe using satellite images if we're talking about maybe use of energy or the consumption of energy, for instance, in a particular city. We can maybe use satellites rather than having to go to survey, to undertake surveys. I think the private sector has a role. But of course, it's not every private sector that can jump into the arena, because we also need to protect, we're dealing with individual data. For people, we need to protect. The issue of privacy will become very critical. So it means there must be some agreement in terms of what is accessed, what is provided, and so forth, without limiting their participation of the private sector. Because I think the more we put a lot of sort of hindrances, the more it becomes very difficult for them to say, look, what is it there for us if we are going to participate with you? So these are things that needs to be looked into very carefully. That's why when you go to advanced countries like Canada, UK, and others, you see their involvement through big data and through data science companies they've created, that they actually bring others beyond just the national statistical offices. And I think Africa, we are getting to that level that we should begin to run away from the traditional thinking that we can only work amongst ourselves. We need to bring others that have the resources to enhance us. And I believe that young statisticians, given the expertise, the capacity, the new methodologies that are being used and coming from various different sectors, have the capacity to really have the opportunity to make these things happen. Just yesterday, including today, this morning, when we were talking about young statisticians, there is a lot of interest from the ECA by the executive secretary. And even now, when I was leaving, I said, look, I need to go down because we have the young statisticians gathering to talk about development issues. There is a lot of interest. So we should leverage on that, those opportunities. And now that we also have a proper coordinating mechanism within ECA, we discussed in the past, how can we develop projects which can be supported by ECA? And as I would like to insist, as I did last time, that those projects must be country-driven. That's only way we can get the resources. In other words, when a project is being run, it must be able to feed into a country process and must be replicable, or rather should be scalable. And that becomes very, very critical. So I think the issues of modernization are at the core now, and in terms of discussion, to make sure that we have countries that have modernized systems. And part of that modernization, it also means that reskilling. And I think part of the need to have the academia and the statistical offices is to begin to influence the curriculum. How can development statisticians influence this stuff that's being taught at universities and research institutions, research training centers? How can we influence that to make sure that people that are trained are people that are relevant? They will come and talk about things that they've been taught, and they've been taught, and they're practical. I mean, many of us, when we leave university and you start to work, you actually discover that a lot of the stuff that you are looking about, or maybe as calculation of mean, but you do realize it's not just about calculation of mean and standard deviations. It's beyond that. Yeah, even when you talk about, we learn about the process of data collection. You come into the field, you actually discover it's beyond just data collection. There are other mechanisms. So how do we infuse these, development issues and influence the academia overall? So these are things I think that the young statisticians and those that are in the academia in particular should begin to look at. And I think for the concern for me in the National Statistical Office is really, how do we remain relevant beyond the kind of schooling that we did? In my time, there was nothing artificial intelligence. And I believe that even 2 years ago, you go to some universities, artificial intelligence is spoken in a very, very light way. Just this morning when we were talking about these issues, there is still something that needs to be demystified, because some people believe that perhaps having an artificial intelligence is a panacea, that is silver bullet. You just, once you have it, you're going to solve the solution. No. So this again, as statisticians, development statisticians, that we should be able to help what it actually means, including big data itself. What does big data mean? Some people still believe that perhaps there's a database of big data, and yet this is a moving needle. So these are things that needs to be unpacked, and I believe that statisticians, you have a very, very big role to play. And at the center here, we're trying to hire with young people, and we just did recently. And the idea is, can we get people that can come and challenge the status quo? We can't do business as usual, given that there are many other people that can do what we do. And I call them data enthusiasts. They're not statisticians, but in their own capacities, they're able to produce data and make their own interpretation of the data. And unfortunately, our governments easily listen to these people because they produce data in real time. And for us, the government statistician, they say, no, I'll come back next week after I've collected data. But it's to be too late, because I need the answers now. So I think that young statisticians, your role in this aspect becomes very critical in influencing the processes, in influencing the transformation that is required on the continent. And as I mentioned, is that oftentimes perhaps one of the mistakes that is associated with the young people today is that when they get into a certain place, the first thing is that, what can I do to make a difference? It's not about what you can do to make a difference. It's about what can you contribute to the process. And most of them, they will say, no, if I don't get enough money, I don't think I have interest in this thing, because they're only paying peanuts. But you're forgetting about the picture, so the bigger picture. So I think the focus for youngsters that I would like to urge is that look at the bigger picture. What is it in there in the long run? Not what in the short run. What is it in there in the long run? I think the president here, talks about being associated with other associations, attending international conferences. They bring a lot of value. You might not be able to get money immediately, but the value, the network, and the knowledge that you gain is so huge that to allow you for bigger doors, to allow you to enter bigger doors, because you have all the knowledge that is required to be able to do that. And I think that if you allow yourselves not to front money, resources, or funding as key for your career, for development, you'll be able to go very far. You'll be able to go very far. So as I exit from the Africa Center for Statistics, I have pledged that in my capacity, in my new capacity, I want to continue to support in one way or the other with the Young Statisticians program. I want to continue the mentorship things that I do. I want to continue giving, these seminars that I speak about. And now one of the things is what I've just spoken about, is the bridging of the relationships between the three. As I was invited by these professors in Seneca and the Statistical Institute in Taipei, one of the things I was speaking about, even when I went to Purdue University, those are things that I talk about. We want to see how we can bridge it. So I want to work with the young statisticians to the extent possible. I've been fortunate that I've been put on the Moy Ibrahim panel of experts, so that is going to help me continue working on data. I've also been fortunate to be put as one of the advisors on the human development report that is done by UNDP, and of course now also the opportunity, the privilege that I've been given to lead as the chairperson for the board of the Zambia Statistical Agency. So I will be associated and with yourselves, if you don't chase me, if you don't think I'm too old to continue doing this, but I may be looking too old, but I think in my heart I'm very, very young, because this is something I'm passionate. I'm passionate because I started off exactly like yourselves, and I have seen things moved through the ranks in terms of my career, both outside the institutions, also in my private life, where I've been associated with the several international agencies. Some of it, I think, were read as part of the intro by the moderator. So, Chair, I want to thank the chairperson for Takwimu, yourself, who have been really, really very resilient, despite some of the challenges that you have faced. No one is promising that, everything, the journey will be easy. Good things are never easy to get. That's one of the things that should be very clear to all of us. Good things are not easy. That's why when they say beautiful things are expensive, it means that you must be able to work for them to be able to get it. So if we are looking for something cheap, we'll not get it. And when we get it, will get away from us. So we must work hard. We must look at the bigger things. We must be able to work with the people that really matter. In this case, you have two who are really very professional and can be able to provide the guidance that you require as young statisticians. So look at the bigger things, but don't look for cheap things. Cheap things don't last. Look for things that are hard, that are going to gain and make you do it, really make a difference at the end of the day. And that's what I would like to say, moderator, and I'm happy to take up any questions if there's any. Thank you very much. Hello? Hello?
Kadi?
Oui, merci beaucoup, professeur directeur. On attend les questions. S'il y a des panélistes ou bien les participants qui veulent poser des questions.
Kadi, je peux?
Oui.
Okay, thank you.
On vous entend pas.
I just wanted to thank you once again for all this. And we hear what you said. We would like to ensure that we got all of your points. But be sure that you are part of Takwimu for life. So we will never change you. Instead, we will always need you. That's what I just wanted to add. Thank you very much for all your support.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe I could just say
Merci, merci beaucoup. Je pense que nous avons clôturé le webinaire. Merci beaucoup au directeur pour l'appui. C'est toujours un plaisir de l'entendre parce qu'il motive et il nous permet aussi d'avoir d'autres perspectives. Je rappelle qu'il y a le lien pour l'évaluation de forme qui est déjà mis dans le chat. Et il y a aussi le lien pour le website de Takwimu. Vous pouvez vous inscrire de manière continue pour les jeunes statisticiens. Donc, merci beaucoup pour cette modération. Sur ce, je pense qu'on peut clôturer ce webinaire et s'attendre à d'autres webinaires dans l'avenir. Merci beaucoup et merci à tous. Merci aux panélistes et merci à tous les intervenants. Merci au directeur Oliver.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.